So it's 1, 2, 3, shoot.
1, 2, 3, throw.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, ready?
And it's the best of 3, right?
Okay.
Okay, ready? You're up 1-0.
Okay.
You're up. You win 2-0. Good start, my friend.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I got that, right?
Yeah, we got it.
I thought you said it was a warm-up. You know, it's just like the pong game. I gotta throw them a few.
This Closers episode is sponsored by Outfield. Outfield is an industry-leading CRM for sales and marketing organizations across the globe. Outfield helps teams optimize their sales process, gamify their productivity, and increase revenue. Download the Outfield app now and use the promo code CLOSERS for 10% off.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Closers Coffee. I'm your host, Carlos Figuerella, and today I'm excited to introduce our guest, Clint Runge. Clint is the co-founder of Archrival, a creative agency with an expertise in youth culture. Clint works with top brands like Redbull, Adidas, and Spotify. Clint is an alumni from the University of Nebraska. He's also a TED Talk participant and is a paper, rock, scissor champion. Did I say that right?
That's right.
Okay.
RPS is that's what we go by in the industry.
Okay, great, man. Well, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we've gotten a chance to talk over the last week and a half, kind of learn more about you. And for our audience out there, why don't you tell us a little bit about Archrival, the things that, what you're doing, who you're working with.
Sure, yeah, great. Well, at its core, Archrival is a youth culture agency that reinvents how brands win the hearts and minds of young adults. Brands generally come to us when they want to go against the grain of traditional marketing to build brand love, loyalty, and sales with teens to 20-somethings. I always like to say we have two different types of clients, right? We have these super cool clients like Redbull and Adidas, Spotify, brands that for the most part people know, people love. I feel like it's always our job to introduce them to new audiences. We have a second type of client. It's usually somebody not as culturally cool, I guess, if I could use that term. But they desperately want to connect with young adults in some way. But maybe it's historical bad marketing, maybe they whiffed on products and services, or maybe just no one knows about them just yet. Whatever it is, they need help going from where they are today to being more relevant tomorrow. It's usually a bit of a process, but that's what Archrival does, take them through all that.
Got it. And so you're a full creative agency, so you work on digital, field activities, and kind of all in between?
Yeah, our real home runs, our three buckets are insights, field marketing, and the experiences that exist out there.
And so talk to us about the manifestation of the company. How did Archrival begin, and what was, that experience like?
Well, Archrival is 22 years old, okay? So in many ways, we've been many different things over time, and your listeners all understand that when you're a startup company, you keep evolving. Yeah. And I think one of the mantras of Archrival is that you are always changing. So Archrival started in architecture school. My business partner at the time, Charlie, and I were going through architecture programs. And there was something along the way where I realized that where the future of architecture was going was just not something I necessarily wanted to be a part of. There's a real hierarchy, a top-down mentality. And it seems like if you wanted to do anything really great in architecture, you had to wait 20 years. That was me being naive and dumb, and I was wrong. But what it did is spur me to also go look at advertising. And so I got a degree in advertising at the same time. And as I was going through the advertising program, what I realized was that the process for coming up with great architecture was actually the same process for coming up with great advertising. It's just that the output was different. And that made me start to think, well, do I want to be a great architect or a great advertiser? And I think what happened was I realized, no, I want to be great at the creative process. And whatever the outcome may be, whether it's architecture, advertising, or something else, I want to be able to do that. And that's what Archrival has been over the last 20 years. Whatever the problem is, Archrival is designed to solve that.
And so talk to us about the early challenges. You went from looking and selling architecture design to now this full creative agency. Where was that process? Where did you identify it was time to switch your business model?
Yeah, I kind of skipped the important part here, which was that when we first started, when you are two broke college students with no experience,
Yes.
nobody wants to hire you,
Yeah.
right? So you have this dream of being this creative agency, but in truth, if nobody wants to pay you to do the work, then you have no value. So where we did have value was in our experience with architecture. So the things that we were doing at the time were highly digital. So we were creating animations and building 3D spaces and things that architects at that time weren't doing. They were still doing hand renderings and drawings and putting things into CAD, and we were building full immersive experiences in 3D. So we had a skill set right at the beginning that was of somewhat value. And so our first couple years was really understanding the design game, but it was helping other designers visualize their work. And that was a struggle because as designers and creatives ourselves, we have our own aspirations of what that could be. So we had to make that sell early on that we were doing that work, that skill set, and then earn the trust to transition that to someone finally believing in us. I'll just let you guys do the design from the beginning.
That isn't easy.
No.
Right? You make it sound easy, but nonetheless, I'm sure that was a lot of sleepless nights.
No, it was brutal. We were like starving artists.
Yeah.
You've heard that term, but it's literally what it was. I remember getting one of our first paychecks for it might have been for like $320. But we thought this was like, oh my gosh, you can make this kind of money? Like
Yes.
someone pays you money to do this stuff? We had designed a logo or something like that, something very simple. But that moment, that first check, was enough to build the confidence to be like, well, let's go do it again.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of knocking on doors, convincing people to give us that chance.
That's awesome. And so Archrival has some pretty strong partnerships. Talk about partnerships early in the day and how have they matured over time to these bigger brands that you've been
Sure.
partnering with.
Well, in the beginning, when you're a starving artist, you do anything for anybody, right?
Yeah.
That's like the game. It's one, we weren't nearly as talented as we thought we were, so we had to actually become more talented. But two, bring on the challenge, and we're interested in it. So we did everything, and of course, most people understand that you want to specialize and have an expertise. That's how you get ahead in business, because then you have something to value. We were a generalist, and we realized we need to become specialized in something. Now, one of the biggest things that set us back was our youth. The fact that we were inexperienced often seemed to be why someone wouldn't trust us. And
Wow.
we realized, we felt like we do know something that these other generations of business owners and CMOs, that's something they don't know, is we understand how to talk to young adults. So we looked back across everything we had done, this is 5 years in. We looked across everything we had ever done. And we said, what's the things that actually worked in a marketing sense, and we had the most fun doing, and we felt like we were good at, and they all had to do with things dealing with youth culture. Now, no surprise, because we're fairly young at the time. So we thought, well, why don't we take the negative and make it into a positive? So let's take the thing that's what people knock us for and own that and champion that. And that became what our next evolution was, a youth marketing agency.
Wow. And so what was one of those early on brands that really solidified that, yes, we know what we're talking about. We are experts in youth culture.
It was no more than maybe 3 months after we finally had made this decision to be a youth marketing agency. We understand young adults, and we put that on our website, and that was our new mantra. It was probably 3 months later that Redbull called. And at that time, Redbull had been moving an energy drink product from Europe, had been marketing in the US, but they had been marketing it in a way that was still European. And
Sure.
they needed a US counterpart to help that be fused into US youth culture. And we had a meeting with them, and I'll never forget it. It was maybe a 90-minute meeting, and we literally fell in love. And it was like everything that we had ever wanted to do and how we envisioned great marketing to actually happen was everything that they had always ever done. And we fell in love, and that was, we haven't looked back since.
Wow.
That was our first one. After that, once you're good enough for Red Bull, you're kind of good enough for the next company, and so on and so on, and that's how we built our talent.
So you talk about this expertise in youth culture. Talk to us about the generational differences and how you have brought that to the table in each of your meetings, and how the differences
Yeah.
you see amongst these generations, whether it's millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, all of the above.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think generational marketing of itself is a little bit of a a religion in some ways. It's like, do you believe that based on when you were raised in a culture, that you might have a set of certain belief standards? And all the research and all the science will tell you yes. So if you took, for example, I use this when I talk about different generations, I'll use an example like success. So every generation in America wants to be successful, but based on when you were born, you view success totally differently. So like my dad, who is an older boomer, if you talk to my dad and say, what's it mean to be successful in life? You will hear words like consistency, loyalty. You know, if my dad could get us all together and provide food for the table, that was success. But then you talk to a Gen Xer about what it means to be successful, you won't hear any of those words. You'll hear a completely different set of language. You'll hear actually reflected in the collection of things. Like they want, if I could get the biggest screen in an awesome man cave downstairs, if I could build my man cave, that would be a sign of success. And then for millennials, it changes about the collection of relationships, both quality and quantity. It's all about, you know, not the things in the world that matter, it's the relationships that matter in this world. And then you get to a teenage day or Gen Z, and you'll hear it expressed differently about achievements. What can I do? What can I change about this world? The more I'm able to change and impact this world, the more successful I will be. So that's like an example, right?
Yeah.
And if you understand how to win the hearts and minds of these different generations, I mean, it should affect everything as a business. It changes the way you hire employees. It changes the way you create your products. It changes the way you certainly market them. And that sort of point of view is often one of the very first conversations we have with the brands we work with.
Definitely. And even you talk about these generational differences. If you think about, the boomers, it was about uniformity, right? Whether it was everyone looked and dressed very similar.
Yep.
And they operated in a community sense, whether to its millennials who identified, as their personal identity, they want to be unique and
Totally.
personalized. So now it's, customization and personalization, where people really want the brand to speak on their behalf, and only to them, no one else.
It's so interesting. Like with the boomer generation, I just find this really fascinating. Like most of America's systems were born with the boomer generation. So the whole idea of suburbs, for example, when everyone moved back from the war, the boomer generation, and they started moving to suburbs, that's when you get this keeping up with the Joneses mentality. That's where it came from, because now suddenly was sitting next to everyone and looking across and being like, well, I want to do what they do. I want to be better than what they have. And
gotta have a Cadillac.
The university systems, where school systems were set up for a boomer generation. The credit card systems were first set up. The economy was first set up for boomer generation. And it's interesting now that you see in culture sort of this riff, right, of young adults versus older adults, because many of these systems were set up for older generations. And now you have this whole wave of new startups and entrepreneurs that are all about disrupting and bucking the systems that were set up by a previous generation.
Yeah.
And that can be very frustrating for some companies, but it also is like huge opportunity for others.
And so how do you sell to these different generations? What are some of the campaigns that you've curated for millennials or Gen Z and so on?
Yeah, well, if you understand what's winning the hearts and minds, then you can come up with really great ideas. We believe, right? At least that's been our formula, so to speak. I'm trying to think of something like, I have a great example. Right now we're doing this campaign with Redbull, who, by the way, is always innovative, always risk-taking, not afraid of failure, and that's like a hallmark of their success, right?
That's awesome.
And with that environment allows us to do some pretty cool stuff. The one we're doing right now, it's called Redbull Can You Make It? And we've done this a few times. But Redbull Can You Make It is where we take students from around the world and we take them to Europe and we drop them off in different places and we challenge them. We give them 7 days from wherever we've dropped them off. They have 7 days to make it to a specific destination. So this year we have 200 teams of 300 of 3 kids in each team, so 600 total students. And the whole challenge is to try to understand the value of a can of Red Bull. So we take everything from them. We take their wallets, their cash, their credit card, their watches, and all they have to take their smartphones from them.
Wow.
Okay, and all they have to make it from wherever we've dropped you off to this next destination. In this case, it's Berlin. We give them 24 cans of Red Bull, to which they have to use as currency
So they're bartering.
Exactly.
Wow.
Like get on the train, get a hotel room, and it is amazing. They have to use these 24 cans of Red Bull, their wits and their charm. Can you make it is the challenge. And it's awesome adventure. When you have these, for many of these young adults, they've never really experienced what it's like to be lost, right? I mean, think about, you always have maps on your phone. So just the experience of being lost and the sensations that come from that, both goosebumps and fear and excitement, they get all of that, and they've never really experienced that before. And you combine that with love of travel, success metric, and this idea of surprise. We can talk more about that.
Yep.
Adding some surprise to their life really creates this incredible campaign. They document all the footage and their whole experience along the way. And do you remember Hunger Games? I always thought
Yes.
this was cool in Hunger Games, where people watching the games could send gifts into the game. Well, in a similar way, people watching can affect the outcome. So 24 cans of Red Bull isn't enough to make it, but the more that your videos that you are creating are liked, shared back on college campuses back home, the more Red Bull you get in the game.
Wow.
By the way, they can't see any of this stuff. They have a device, but they can only upload. They can't see what people are saying. They can't get internet maps or anything like that.
Literally social currency.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, and the better you are at doing that, making beautiful content, shocking content, funny content, whatever it is, you use that as fuel to get you further in the competition. And it's a riot, man.
With this generational piece, how do you talk to these older stakeholders about the youth, and how do you get their buy-in? Because there's such a gap between boomers and Gen Z that for them to even comprehend what the message is and what it's like.
Well, you add into the fact that, part of being a boomer, a younger boomer, and certainly Gen Xers, that we think we know it all. I'm a Gen Xer, and that just sort of like comes in the territory. That's one of the pieces of the puzzle. So it makes it very hard, because people who are in positions of marketing budgets, making decisions at companies, kind of feel like they know what it's like to be young. I mean, we've been able to stay younger longer, right? Like getting older at 40 isn't the same as it used to be. So people feel younger, they feel like they know what it's like to be young. But once you actually sit down and show them, hey, here's what dating life is like as a teenager now. Here's what they think is funny. Here's what they're actually laughing at. Here's how they poke fun about your brand. Here's what their aspirations are. And you realize it's like 180 from the way I see the world. That opens the door then for conversation to say, okay, so let's rethink some things.
Last question around the generational differences is, when you're bringing these campaigns together and you're, bringing them to life, what are some of the metrics that you really focus on to ensure that, it's sustained, it's valued, it's ongoing, and that, you're constantly evolving with these campaigns?
So this is probably a real struggle that almost everyone is having. How do you measure the effectiveness of what you're putting out there? And the reality is, the one metric has to always be sales of some kind. It's got to be something like that. Maybe it's a loyalty club sign up, but you know how many sales you get off a loyalty club sign. So it's always got to come back to sales. And I think a lot of brands and agencies, for so long have gotten away with more vanity metrics, which is how many impressions did we get? How many people liked my post or whatever? And I think those days are gone. So now brand marketers and CEOs, like everyone's under the gun. Every quarter, people are getting fired if they don't produce results. So the world of which it's like, let's take this much time to build a brand seems to have disappeared. And now it's like, you got this much time to build a brand and get sales from it. So the programs that I think if we look back 15 years ago that we were doing, the campaigns and programs, they were designed for long-term impact. And now the ones that we're doing, they have to have a shorter turnaround. Like they have to be able to move product more quickly, or prove that it could move product more quickly. And I think that's a challenge, because some of the artistry can be lost, some of the creativity can be lost in that. And I believe very passionately that great creative can make an extreme difference in an outcome. So what do we try to measure? Sales. But it's difficult to do, but at the end of the day, if we're not measuring against that, a campaign budget will probably go away.
Definitely. Awesome. And so kind of touching on one of my favorite subjects, as a sneakerhead, you've worked with Adidas pretty heavily.
Yeah.
You have a strong partnership there. Talk to us a little bit about some of the campaigns you've done, some of the different activations, and maybe even highlight some of the sneakers that you've helped launch.
Our best work, well, when we first started with Adidas, some of our best work out of the gate was with Boost. Boost, of course, now I'm going to get on my sales, rampage about Boost, but Boost is incredible technology, and it's something that Adidas has built the platform of the company on going forward because it works. And the results that their athletes are getting, the results that their common customers are getting have been amazing. We're asked to basically make Boost a reality across youth culture. And we do that through a number of ways. We do that in retail centers, we do that on college campuses, we do that in the wild and on social. And ultimately it's all about bringing that all together for people to realize that Adidas is changing the game when it comes to sports, fashion, and culture.
Yeah, I watched the James Harden campaign that you did. And, for our audience out there, you helped bring a NBA-like all-star game to an intramural game at ASU.
Yeah.
And so talk to us a little bit about that. We were chatting earlier, but I thought that was really cool.
Maybe your viewers will know this, but ASU is renowned for its intramural programs. If you go play ball, if you're a baller, and you go play in the intramural programs there, I mean, it's like playing in Division I at times. Like, these players are really good. So when, and if you think about Harden, who is from ASU, if you think about how do you want to treat the next generation of athletes, some of the things that would come to life is that there's a belief system among them that they can be great, and they can be. It doesn't mean they're going to be in the NBA, but they can be great. So we thought, well, why don't we go to the place where some of the greatest amateur athletes are, and happens to be kind of a backyard for Harden, an old stomping ground, that we could up-level this entire experience. So the intramural championships, which is a heck of a game, by the way, we treated it just like they were in the NBA Finals. And it was awesome with the announcers and speakers. And of course, they all had the latest drop of the Hardens. And then, of course, seeding their whole fan base as well to come watch the game. Most people aren't there to watch the intramural championships, but because of this event, it's like packed, right?
Yeah.
It's such a cool, unique experience for those amateur athletes. That has a ripple effect, Now that ripples effect to other athletes and other campuses. And so even though we make an awesome experience for this one spot, one time, we find that a really great experience like that tends to have impact of waves all over across the entire sport.
Just watching their excitement, their faces as they're running through the tunnel.
Yeah.
They got the lights and the smoke.
Yeah, how would you feel, man? You would get so pumped up about that.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm a sneakerhead. I love sneakers. Shout out to Boost. I got my Pirate Blacks on. But I think that it would just be a great experience to take a pickup game, essentially, and then just turn it into this NBA-like presentation.
Absolutely.
I'd probably ball out on the court and...
Oh, you'd come out and jack up a three immediately because you'd be
Yes.
so pumped up about it. Yeah. No, and that's, repeating that, not just that exact same experience, but repeating that feeling, right? That when you're wearing Adidas product, you're at another level. And, whether that's in culture or sport, that you feel like you have the confidence that you didn't have before, how can we repeat that over and over again? And that's the experiences we try to do.
Awesome. Well, I did bring some sneakers for us to check out.
What
so
you got back here?
Hopefully we can, first and foremost, shout out to the ultimate sneaker book, right? This is the Sneakerhead Bible, right?
That.
We'll put that down. But
What year is that, by the way? When did that come out?
it's
Looks fairly recent.
fairly recent. Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to the wife. Great.
She get
Christmas
that for
present.
you?
Absolutely. My wife knows me very well.
Good for you.
So you mentioned Boost, right? So I got a few pairs here.
Is that box actually true? Is that what's actually inside?
I'm gonna let you find out. So here's another pair. I'll let you kind of open up. So we got some Yeezys here.
Okay.
What you know about Yeezys?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeezys have literally been one of the smartest collaborations that Adidas has ever done. Their actual oh, look at you.
You know, listen, we
Can I show this off?
please.
Look. 350.
Look at that. Got the 350s, but you know, we got some 700s as well. Shout out to Kanye. If Kanye's watching. Much love.
Yeah, I don't know if people probably understand the value of this product that we're holding here in our hands, but this is a hot commodity.
Yes.
Which is a tribute to Kanye, really, for creating a culture where it's not about him, but it's about the attitude, right? That you can do, the confidence I was talking about, that you can overcome, and that you can have the confidence to do it your way, your own style, and who cares who tries to put you down. That's like what these mean. And when you wear these, even if you don't, like Kanye, it doesn't matter. When you wear these, you feel that way.
Absolutely. And the Boost is super comfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Boost is where it's at.
I do love the 700s. More of a dad shoe, but very comfortable. The 350s, those just feel like a glove on your
Yeah,
feet.
no, this is a great silhouette. Like most people probably look at that and they're like, really? That?
Yeah.
But when you put them on and you get the right fashion sense, I mean, that turns heads.
Absolutely. Yeah, these are definitely
Well done.
uh,
I could take all this home, right?
Absolutely.
That's what this is,
Yes,
like a party
this
gift? Kidding.
so we'll just kind of rock these
Oh,
up
yeah.
here,
Make a
you
nice
know?
little VM display here.
Yeah, keep those right there. But cool. So kind of switching gears on us.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this trip that you took out to India.
Sure.
So you were pretty reluctant to make a trip out there. You were being asked by one of your coworkers or friends.
Yeah, one of my friends, yeah.
So talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's interesting you bring it up because it's such a, you get into your world, right? Whatever business it is, whatever it is that you're doing, you kind of get in your lane. It's easy to put up the blinders and see what's going on in the rest of the world. Certainly true for me. That's just the reality of being a hustler and entrepreneur, and you're selling, you're trying to keep afloat, right? Try to survive, so you do what you can. Yeah, my friend Ryan, he's a pastor, really was doing incredible work in India, and of course I spent a lot of time there and seeing some of the challenges of that, of situations that are over there, and really wanted me to go with him to see it. Because that's what good friends do, right? I mean, they help you see the world in different ways. And to your point, I said no several times because you get busy. I got things to do.
Life's in the way.
Yeah, I got other things. And honestly, the idea of going to India is a long ways away. And it's just not a priority for me. But he finally convinced me, and I'm glad he did. So I take this trip to India just to go experience what it's like over there. And there's actually a business over there business owner that he wanted me to meet and thought I could maybe in some ways help even. So although I started reluctantly, I went over there and I immediately realized that all the things that I worry about over here in the United States pale in comparison to the survive. I think I'm trying to survive.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a break, right? Like survival's a different level over there. Such a smart, sophisticated culture, and yet so many challenges, literally to survive. It, in a way, it really impacted me. It opened my eyes that I don't know. It's like when you see people in need and help. If you look them in the eyes, I think oftentimes most people are good people. You want to help. So I met with this business owner, doing some great stuff, but I never thought I had much to offer anyone in the way of business. I don't consider myself a businessman or a business person. I'm just doing what I love and build a company around it.
You're just a business man.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you for catching that. But once I was there, I realized, well, I have been through a series of experiences and successes and failures.
Sure.
And I could help this person. So I spent 2 days mapping out their entire business, rethinking how they could structure it, the opportunities in front of them, and we formed a really great friendship out of it. And so I left thinking it was over, but we became friends and we check in on a regular basis. And we even ended up hiring some of their employees to help do work for us because they're so good at it.
Yeah. And so this partnership, there's some deeper layers there because they actually are powering the church in Calcutta. So essentially the success of that business was contingent, the success of the population was contingent on success of this company.
Yeah. So there's a community that they support, and that community it needs as much help as it can. And this guy built his entire business based on not all, but majority of the profits, more than what we would consider, going towards helping this community.
Wow.
And that's pretty impressive. Think about how people here would start a business, be like, look, profits are not the goal. The goal is this group of people.
Yeah, the community.
It's impressive. I mean, that opened my eyes. And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to sell Yeezys, and make a profit. And they're over there trying to survive, helping other people. It just impacts you. And it's really, forced me to rethink some things at Archrival.
That's awesome. And kind of to wrap that one up, you went in with a completely different mindset than you came home with, right? You went in there.
100%. I went there reluctant, maybe even a little annoyed. I went busy, but I came back changed in some ways. And
sure.
I think anyone who's had a very powerful experience where you've seen a completely different type of life, I think that opens people's eyes. It did for me. And now I encourage everyone. It's like, if it doesn't have to be India, but just go see how other people live.
Absolutely.
And maybe you'll be compelled to help.
Definitely. Yeah. Growing up, my father was in the military, so I got to travel and
cool.
see other different places. And, those experiences really do open you up. I'm from Puerto Rico, but I have family in Dominican Republic. And so, going there and just seeing the differences, and it's only a 90-mile distance.
That's easy to get. Do you go there much?
I do. Yes, yeah. I do. I have family still in Dominican Republic.
Cool.
And so, go visit pretty frequently. But just seeing, that at the end of the day, it is a third world country.
Yeah.
And there are people that just don't have the means to really uplift themselves nor a community. It's humbling. It makes you appreciate the ability to sit here and talk about business in a different angle, and it gives you the ability to think about how you can give back.
You know what? On that note, even if you think you have nothing to offer somebody else, you have confidence. You have more confidence in yourself than what other people have. And if you can share that confidence and build that in someone else, that might be the win right there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. So next topic I want to talk about is we mentioned at the beginning of the show, you are a keynote presenter at a TED Talk Lincoln, correct?
Yep.
And so I watched it. Amazing keynote, but there was some interesting dynamics to it. For our audience out there, I suggest you tune in, check out Clint's TED Talk.
Yeah.
But discuss behind the scenes a little bit. You pivoted in that decision and made some changes last minute that came as a surprise, which we'll talk about, but it was a surprise to them and surprise to others.
Yeah, I went into it thinking, I'm sure your viewers are familiar with TED Talks and TEDx Talks. Always really great, really compelling. Always wanted to do one, and got invited to be part of to do one. And I went in thinking I knew what the topic was. I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I actually wrote an entire talk around it. I had been prepping for it, and I don't know. Maybe this is good or bad, and maybe a lot of your viewers have the same thing where it's like, is it good enough? Is it good enough? And you're always, I think sometimes when you put things on paper, you realize, okay, that's like level one, but I got more in me. And there was something eating at me. I was like, the thing I was actually saying I was going to talk about, I don't think I actually want to talk about this. I don't think I find it as interesting as I thought it was. But what I really wanted to talk about was what was bothering me at that time about life was the surprises of life. And I said, if look, in a TED Talk, you can talk about whatever you want. And I said, I think what I actually want to talk about is the surprise of life and the diminishing returns that we're having on it. So I changed it last minute on everyone, and they were cool with it. But in some ways, the surprise change is almost fluid to the whole notion of the talk in many ways.
Sure. And so in that, you touch on a couple different subjects, but the meat of it is that we're attached to our smartphones.
Yeah.
And so you pull the surprise on your wife, where you put her through some ringers and some highs and lows while she's trying to figure out where her phone is and what's going on. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So the whole premise is that technology is continually making the assumptions that it understands your sense of discovery better than you. And when we let technology discover our new music, discover the next show we should watch, discover what book we should read, you're actually losing the joy of discovery, which is the trial and error and fail, and when I actually uncover something that I earned it, I did this, and not the technology. So discovery isn't about the aha at the end, like I found a new band to listen to. You won't love them the way you would as if you were actually out searching for somebody and happened to fall into a bar one night and heard this beautiful singer and followed them, and then they become your favorite singer because of the process of which it took to discover that artist. So that's the whole premise of it. And to kind of help illustrate that, I did an experiment where I felt like she'll probably hate me for talking about it, but my wife was really, the technology was dictating her decisions in many ways. And I thought, well, what happens if we become too reliant on that? What happens when we take that away? So I took her phone, I hid it, pretended it was lost, did it for quite a bit of time, and just kind of rolled with it and watched the effect of that. Very interesting. You can hear it in the TED Talk. And then I thought, talking about surprise of life, I thought, what a fun thing. I'm going to reveal that this was an experiment at the TED Talk, and that would be the first time she'd find out about it. So I thought it was kind of a clever, end to it. And it certainly helped provide a little bit of surprise for the talk.
You were foreshadowing the future. You talk about things. This was 2013,
Yep.
Correct? And you were foreshadowing behaviors and anticipating some things that are current trends and topics in the news, whether it's privacy, screen time, generational differences, how media is consumed by different generations. All of those things you were hinting at, not even hinting, you were discussing in 2013 and are very relevant today. So talk to us about that. How are you foreseeing that then, and what are your thoughts today?
Well, I think in one way, I'm lucky that I'm the right age, frankly, to be of balance, where I have a lot of memories and discoveries of what it was like without technology.
Yes.
And of course, now have memories and discoveries with technology. And you can relate the pros and cons. And I wouldn't say either is good or bad, just different. And maybe some things that you miss about what I think are, it's not like I'm old and I like the way that it was, but it's more like there are some human needs that I think that what truly makes us human that we're missing. And that's this joy of discovery. You know what? When you know everything, I think in some ways you know nothing. And that's what that talk was all about, was that if we continue to go down this path, more and more, I think we're going to lose a little bit of ourselves in this. And pretty soon, I'll stop trying to find the next show to watch because it's just going to be right in front of me, and all my friends are already going to talk about it. In fact, they've probably already watched it, and they've told me, they've leaked what's going to happen to me. I can't watch. There's no more discovery. And I think while there is definitely some opportunity there, I also think there's a little joy lost in it. And so maybe it doesn't have the same impact that it once did. All that's just kind of a passion point for me personally. I love mysteries. I love thrillers. I don't watch a movie trailer. All I need to know is kind of the general plot, but I don't want to know too much because I want the full thrill of going and not seeing any of the scenes yet, and have that happen for me. So I don't know. I think those topics you talked about, are all now very relevant, and I don't know that things have gotten better. I think, if anything, we've dove more headfirst into letting technology choose our opinions, preferences, and we're becoming more and more okay with it too.
Sure.
So good and bad though.
Absolutely. I think, back to your point, I also remember times when I didn't have technology as, a crutch to lean on
Yeah.
for decisions or entertainment or productivity, and think back on the simplicity of life and the surprise of being able to find something. I think back of, you touched on music, and I remember, being able to discover new music and learn about new things without it being forced on me.
Yeah.
So,
I think that there's something special, but it makes it a special experience for you, and it lasts with you forever. In the talk, I contrast 2 trips to Europe. One where I did not have technology and I got lost everywhere I went. It was frustrating. I ate food I didn't enjoy. I missed certain. I missed entire countries and ended up in places I didn't expect. And at that time, you can think, wow, what a terrible trip. But when I contrast that to another trip where I went everywhere I wanted to, I got into every museum I expected, nothing went wrong. I translated the menus to make sure I got what I liked, and the trip wasn't nearly as interesting.
Yeah.
And still today, when I talk about Europe, I think about that first trip. I think about the trip where the true sense of discovery, those are where the stories lie. And I think if we're not careful, we can lose that.
Definitely. One last point to add there is, as a child, I lived in Europe, and I remember my dad pulling out the German, because we lived in Germany, the German map.
Okay.
And us trying to coordinate and figure out, and where do we take turns? What do we do? And
And now you just hit the button and it just tells you where to go, and you don't have to even think about it. Look, that is great. I think it's also dangerous.
Yes. Good stuff. Well, appreciate that. So for our next segment, we're going to talk about getting loose with it, right?
Okay.
So you're going to tell us a little bit of a crazy or funny story, but I want to talk about risk.
Okay.
Because you have a different approach to risk. So before we get into the story, tell us a little bit about your philosophy on risk.
Okay, so I think risk is really important. And I think in this world, even with all the movements and everything that's happening, we all understand we should embrace risk, but right now in culture, playing it safe is becoming more and more important. Anyone who puts themselves out there too far, you get knocked, you get dinged, you say something you shouldn't have, you do something you shouldn't have, you get destroyed, right?
Yes.
And so now there's a reaction in culture that taking risk is too risky. And when I think back to the brands and people that I admire the most, they're the ones who are not afraid to take smart risks. So I almost draw it like a circle, and there's in the middle there's very safe ideas, and then there's a ring out here these are better ideas, and then there's like the edge of culture ideas, and then there's this line, and where it's like the best ideas actually are. And if you can push your ideas, your brand, your company to that line, you have the most success. What I believe though is that most people see that line, they're afraid to step over the line. And you have to step a little bit over the line to know where it's actually at. Because if you don't, you will actually, as you walk towards what you believe to be the line, the actual line might be out here. Your risk tolerance might actually be, the great idea might be here, but you stop short because you're scared. And what I've always encouraged people to do, and what I try to do at Archrival, is let's go a little bit further and see if the line is there. Oh, it turns out it's not. What if is the line here? Oh, it's not. And you keep going until you know, okay, that's the line. I'm stepping on it right now, and then you got to come back.
Yeah.
But now I'm in that sweet spot where great things can happen.
So in that, that context, you on your website, Archrival, you have a video of you